Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Faces of NextGen Live. I am Eric Wells. I'm the education coordinator for the NextGen Genealogy Network, and my company is Legacy Left Right. Well, this is a show where we get to interview genealogists from around the world, and you get to know them, and I get to know them, and it's just a ton of fun. So today, I am super excited. I've known her for a little bit now, and I'm really, really excited to welcome Christine Woodcock. Christine, you want to say hi to everybody? You've got to unmute your microphone first.
Hey, everybody.
How are you doing, Christine?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thanks for being here today. Now, you're experiencing a storm where you're at, right?
Yeah, I can every now and then I get this bright light that happens, and it's not like pre-seizure stuff. It's actually lightning coming in my back door window. So Southern Ontario. Okay. So about an hour from either Toronto or Niagara Falls.
You're not too far from Mike Quackenbush then.
I'm not. No, he's like maybe half an hour down the road.
Awesome. Well, yeah. How have you been? Like, I think you and we first met at Roots Tech about 3 years ago now.
I think that's what it was. Yeah, I've been great. Really great. Busy, but great.
Yeah, one of the things that you do, your company is you take tours. You take people on tours of Scotland, genealogy tours.
Right. So I don't do like the clans and castle tours, right? Because my knowledge about that, you could probably put in a teacup, but not a very big teacup at that. But so what I do is I organize groups of researchers, family history researchers, and I organize their time in the repositories, facilities, archives in Scotland to find their ancestors. And it's the most humbling experience, but it's a ton of fun. And yeah, I really enjoyed.
Do you have like certain places that you always go to, or is it kind of like at the behest of the people who are joining you? Or
no. So I have historically, I started this in 2011. So what I was doing was, you know, when you start doing genealogy and you start to become what you think is an expert, and then people invite you to come and teach them, and you talk and do that whole circuit, and then people like actually listen to you. So I was doing that, and what dawned on me was so many people who have Scottish ancestors had never been to Scotland. And I'm like, how does that happen? Like, how can you not go? That's my granny's, like, that's where I go to see my granny, right? So I decided that that's really what needed to happen. And so the best way I thought for them to get there, that, you know, wasn't a clans and castles tour and really fed into the genealogy market, was to do some research. So we have historically been in Edinburgh, which is where all the national records are. And then last year I put in a Glasgow tour, which is more unique just to the Glasgow area. You know what? The records there, oh my gosh. It's like my own Who Do You Think You Are episode. I love it. And yeah, honestly, I just love it. So, and that sold out in 2 weeks, and people asked me to do another one. And the one this year for 2018 sold out in 48 hours.
Now, when did you start first researching and getting into genealogy?
2001 or 2. My mom and my mom was one of 21 kids, and my mom and my
kids,
right? Yeah, same father, 2 different mothers. First mother died in childbirth, and it actually wasn't until I started doing the family history that we got the whole story around that. And then my grandfather married my grandmother. And my mom, so we had company come all the time from Scotland, right? Like constantly from May to September. And we'd all get together all the time and listen to the stories. And, you know, my cousin and I, honestly, were like, just shoot us. Just shoot us. Put us on an electric chair. We don't want to hear it. And Then my mom passed away very suddenly, and my grand died shortly after that. And I thought, oh no, like, how are my kids going to know those stories? And that was so important to me. So I started, I didn't know, Eric, that you don't start genealogy by putting a family history book together. So I did. And
very nice.
I know. And then, of course, once you're hooked, right? It's so.
Yeah, that's almost the way I did it too. Like my grandma had a ton of photos, and I promised her I would put a photo book together, and these were all old ancestors. And once I was like, I had all these photos digitized, I realized these photos, these people in the pictures aren't going to mean anything to anybody unless they're connected to the reader. And so my photo project turned into a family history book, and it was
and a lifetime obsession.
Yes, pretty much, and I haven't looked back since.
Yeah.
So you researched your ancestors. Is there one that you would really want to meet?
There's two that I would really want to meet. One is my great grandfather, who continues to be my brick wall. He fathered 4 sons, and the sons all had different stories as to what happened to him. Line, we're told that he signed up for the Boer War, went off to South Africa and never returned. That my great grandmother got a notice saying that he was missing in action, presumed dead. My grandfather's brother's family were told that he had signed up to fight in the Boer War, went off to South Africa, fell in love with a Dutch woman, married, and had subsequent children. And doing research, he never signed up for the Boer War.
Oh, wow.
So show yourself up, Hugh Crawford. Where are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I'm not sure, and I'll find out next May. I think I found him in an asylum. Oh. And that would make sense, right? Because everybody would, I mean, to say that he was in an asylum, especially if his wife probably put him there, wouldn't be sort of the best story you want to have around a small community.
Yeah. The Boer War is a much better story than...
right? I know. Exactly. Yeah. And the other one is his son. So that would be my grandfather's brother. And we knew that he had gone to America and died early. So in tracking him down, and this was sort of, like you get that whole hunt thing, and, you contact everybody, and people are so sick of you, they finally send you the documents you want. So he got on a boat in Glasgow and landed in New Brunswick, I believe it was. And he was supposed to be going to work in some coal company in New Brunswick, but that coal company never existed. He also listed himself as single, but he had a wife and 2 very young children that he had left behind. He traveled through to Detroit and worked with his cousin at Ford for a bit. Went through Ohio and picked up a wife, and ended up in California, and actually didn't do too bad for himself. He wound up managing a Turkish bath, dry cleaner, and barbershop.
He had 2 wives then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. And so he was actually doing quite well, and he was in an ad for the Oakland Tribune. And then within 8 or 9 years, he was dead. So in doing the research, and it makes sense because it was right around the time of the Depression, right? So businesses were going for a dump anyway.
Yeah.
And I got his death record, and it sounded like alcoholism, which, doesn't really surprise me. I was always worried about doing our family's DNA because I thought it was going to come back as the recipe for single malt scotch. So
I'm sorry, but we can't process your DNA. It's 60 proof or
exactly. Don't take a torch to it. So
you're spinning into the little vial. Don't get any flames here.
Oh gosh. I have lost my con. Oh yeah. So anyway, so and then it said on his death certificate, cause of death was accidental death by verdict of jury. So that all verdict of jury. So there's been a coroner's inquest, right?
Said that he died by accident.
Right. So I get the coroner's inquest stuff, or the coroner's report, and it sounds like what happened was the wife got up. This is the second wife, remember, gets up in the morning. Before she goes to work, she dumps out his gin and pours in cleaning fluid. Goes off to work. He gets up, drinks this cleaning fluid. By the time she comes back, he's in agony, and it takes him actually 12 days to die. So I know. So she, at that time, was a witness, right? But nowadays, she'd probably be charged. Well, I'd charge her.
Yeah.
And so I always think I have like my own real life game of Clue, right? The second wife did it with the cleaning fluid in the gin bottle.
That's awesome.
So, I know.
A good story. Maybe it wasn't awesome back then.
And I'm sure it wasn't for him. But thanks for suffering. It made a good story for me.
Now, I hesitate to ask this question because you gave such a great answer to the last question. What is your most interesting or surprising discovery? Was it more than just the cleaning fluid in the gin bottle?
No, well, I mean, I think so. I think the fact that he had a second wife that nobody knew about, right? And then, but so did his mother, because she's the one that was married to my grandfather. Like my great grandmother had a second husband. But do you divorce somebody who's in an asylum? I don't know. How does that work?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So your grandmother
I'm thinking bigamy probably runs in the family back then.
and
none of my aunts and uncles knew any of that, right?
What?
So
yeah. What did when you put your DNA in? Have you started to sort through that at all? Is it?
Yeah, it's Scottish.
Okay.
Like I didn't know that for my birth certificate. But.
Well, not ethnicity, but like, are you finding some weird connections just that you didn't expect out of it? Because you would have these relatives that were from different wives at the same time. It sounds like.
No, you know what though? When I was doing, so there's a website that's actually run by the same people that do Find My Past and the British Newspaper Archive. It's called Genes Reunited, and they were the first where you would upload your tree and they would do smart matches. And I think because it's UK based, the smart matches were actually smart matches. Right. So I get notice from like My Heritage and places like that I have matches, and it comes back and tells me it's somebody in Ohio. Well, yeah, no, actually it isn't, because I don't have anybody in Ohio. So, so I connected with probably 10 or 12 cousins around the world through that website.
Got it.
Which was awesome, because then you get photographs and stories and all kinds of stuff, right?
That's
the
awesome.
DNA thing, no, not so much.
Okay. And do you have some favorite books that's like genealogy related or otherwise, like some great books that you would recommend to people?
You know what? I really love Scotland, and I really love the history of Scotland. So, and for me, the part that is sort of my niche thing is around why people left. So anything to do with emigration from Scotland, I will read over and over. But yeah, probably those. I just actually read one on the plane too. I can't remember where I was going, SoCal. And it was all about people leaving the Western Isles. And I didn't realize until I started reading that it was actually much later than the Highland clearances, for instance. But what's really nice is it would say X number of families left this island and went to. So it actually gives you an endpoint to where they showed up. So it's like, how cool is that?
So like a whole group of people.
Yeah.
Like one, and
like a whole community. Yeah.
And when you went to SoCal, was that for the Jamboree conference?
It was. Wasn't that fun?
That was so much fun.
I love that.
It's on my schedule for next year. That is so much fun.
So much fun. And you know what's really funny is people go, "Wow, you were in Burbank? What's it like?" I'm like, Marriott Hotel. I have no idea.
Yeah. There were like these airplanes going over all the time.
A great patio out back. I don't know.
Burbank has a great patio out back.
Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
So my wife is really getting into and has just devoured the Outlander.
Oh.
What is that? Ugh.
Oh, who isn't devouring it? Yeah, it's fabulous.
I'm not, but
yeah, well. Yeah.
Are you enjoying it?
You know what? The other thing that's kind of interesting for that, I mean, I really enjoyed it. It's a little bit skewed on history, but a lot of that stuff is. But the interest that it has created in Scotland is phenomenal.
Oh, really?
And, oh my gosh. And you can get all kinds of Outlander tours and, go and see the filming locations. And yeah, it's awesome. Awesome.
For me, when I think Scotland, I think of the Highlander movie series. I just love
like Braveheart.
uh,
Freedom.
a little bit, but more of the Highlander and like the Cloud Clan and
Have you seen that cartoon or it's not a cartoon, it's a YouTube thing, and it's two Scotsmen stuck in an elevator that does voice recognition. They don't understand. It doesn't understand the thing they're saying. That is hilarious.
They're like, yes.
11! And they're talking to it like it's real.
Cracks me up. We were talking a little bit about earlier before we got on air here. We were talking a little bit about you said something which kind of surprised me, that the Scottish dances that they do was a drill for
military drills. Yeah,
military drill. What? Tell me about that. Like I see them kind of dancing and prancing around or bouncing or something.
Prancing?
Like
come on.
I mean, not prancing, but
you wait till somebody gets one of those cabers near you.
yeah, that's the other thing.
Tell him he's prancing. Yeah, well, a lot of the stuff that you see at the Highland Games actually started out as military exercises for the army. Yeah. So
how
would
the caber toss come in handy?
Because they had to clear their way, right? And you know what? I'm sure it came in handy too when they came to Canada and had to clear forests.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. They couldn't just hook a log up to a horse. They had to lift it and walk it. And
I know, right?
To be flipped.
Under his arm, taking it off to the pub. I don't know. Too funny. I was at Fergus Highland Games a couple of years ago. It's the largest here in Ontario. And one of the oldest, I think, and it's definitely the largest clan gathering. And I went when I was a kid, so for me to go now is just a hoot and a half, right? And they had the largest simultaneous caber toss that, like, Guinness Records was there. So I happened to be at the field when that happened. And honestly, watching those telephone poles collapse was like watching toothpicks fall.
Oh, wow.
It was and they all just came in on each other. It was phenomenal. Just incredible. That was incredible.
We've got some Highland Games coming up here in Springfield, Missouri, where I'm at, and I may be able to catch it, but I think that my schedule is pulling me to Houston for the Texas Genealogy Society. But I've always wanted to go to that. Every year, something comes up where I can't, but it just looks like so much fun to watch.
The other one is that, and I'm not sure, I guess, was around the tug of war too, right? Like you watch that and you think, holy. Yeah. I could never do it, but
and they have to lift also like gigantic boulders up or something, and
yeah, they toss those rocks and they make it look like it's a pebble, right?
Yeah, it's nuts. Maybe I could have done it 2 decades ago, but I don't know if I could do it now.
No.
All right, so where do you like to research? Like, where is there a specific place you love doing research? Do you find that you just get in the groove and it's perfect?
Yeah, local archives in Scotland, definitely. Okay. And my favorite of late is the Glasgow City Archives. And I don't really have a whole lot of ancestors from the city of Glasgow proper, but the records that they have are absolutely incredible. And honestly, I feel like I'm in my own Who Do You Think You Are episode. Because, you get the actual poor law books and you get the actual estate paper records. And, it's just like, they had one book and I picked it up and it was, so it was like the roll call book for the Masons meetings in like 1677.
Oh, like the 17th century?
I know.
Wow.
Well, and then my kids came in May for 2 weeks. That was their Christmas present. I paid for them to come over. So my son wanted to go and see, we do a lot of visiting of social history museums while we're there, because I think that's so important, understanding, the lives your ancestors lived and the country and all the rest of it. So he wanted to go and see St. Andrews University because it was the oldest university in Scotland. So we toddled off to St. Andrews, and in behind St. Andrews is a museum about the university. And they had this glass case and they had a student's notebook in there, which actually looks more like a textbook, but it's all handwritten. And it was from a Colin Campbell, and it was his notes from his physics class in 1667. And And he was talking about the new discoveries from Sir Isaac Newton.
New discovery.
Right?
Awesome.
I know. And then we went to the Anatomy Museum. It's not open it's only open once a month, but it's phenomenal. Like they got all these skulls and skeletons and stuff. But they, and that's at the University of Edinburgh. And they had used to get a little card that was a little bit bigger than it's not like an index card size. And it would be how many hours you had taken in a class. And it was Charles Darwin's, the record of Charles Darwin attending anatomy classes.
This is in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And that was like the 1830s?
Yeah.
1820s?
But that's still there, right? And it's not like in Charles Darwin's family. It's there for everybody to see. Although if I was Charles Darwin's descendant, I'd want it. I'd be up the card, folks.
And so I assume that Scottish research is what you just love doing. Is there another area of research that you want to learn about more or work to get a little bit better at?
Like genealogy research?
Yeah.
Probably not. I kind of like my niche. I also do, as I was saying to you before we went on air, Canadian, and it's primarily around, because, I have some colleagues that are way better at Canadian genealogy than I am. But it's more for people who have left Scotland and wound up in Canada, and so that I can help them to understand what record sets to look for here, where they might find their ancestors on this side of the pond.
Got it. Yeah. Do you take on clients, genealogy clients?
No, thank you.
Right?
Nope. No, it's really just it's really just the ancestral tourism piece. Yeah. And so because of that, I sit on committees remotely and that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
I am super jealous of what you do in order to you kind of get paid to take people around to archives and stuff. So sounds like so much fun.
It is so much fun. It is. And you know what? I mean, for me, it's really important too that people who are, particularly for young genealogists who are just kind of getting into this and hoping to do some sort of career path in it. Nobody makes 7 figures in genealogy. It just doesn't happen. So you need to find something that you really love, and it doesn't have to be client research.
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly right.
It can be as awesome as taking people to do their own research and being really humbled by their stories and, watching the tears and the goosebumps. And it's incredible, just incredible. I know.
That's so cool.
Every day. It's just phenomenal.
I get to present some research findings to clients and stuff like that, and they just get
yeah, same, right?
Yeah, it's just the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just so satisfying that you made a huge difference for these people.
Yeah.
When you first started out researching genealogy, what if you could go back and tell your 2001 self one thing that would make a difference for you back then? What would it have been? What would you wanted to tell your starting out self?
Be more organized. It's not good enough just to write it on a scrap of paper and hope that 5 years later you'll be able to find it. Right?
Yeah.
That's... And sources. Because what I would do is I would, take out the document and I would have that, but then you don't put that into your family tree, right? And so if you're uploading, you don't necessarily upload the document, so you need to have that source in there somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that, the organized part in particular, because we kind of tend to get so excited and just start gobbling and going through record after record. But if we don't have it all organized, that's the exciting part in a sense, and the organizing part for me isn't necessarily the funnest. But
yeah, it's like filing, right? Nobody likes to file, but it makes your life a whole lot easier if you do it.
Yeah. So I know you attend conventions. Which one are you going to be at next? Where are you going to be next?
So I am one of the co-organizers for the Great Canadian Genealogy Summit, which is going to be in Halifax in October. And then actually I'm going to take a break for a bit because it's been manic this year. Yeah. It's been one after the other after the other. And you know what? I did a conference. I actually organized a conference for the Scottish diaspora here. And it was done late on Saturday, and Sunday morning when I woke up, my phone gave me an alert that I could check into the hotel, and I almost started to cry. I'm like, where am I going now? I just got home. I just want to sleep.
Yeah, every time I meet you, you're always like just a bubble of energy and
Go,
just
go,
going,
go.
going, going. It's so neat to watch. And in fact, you're leaving pretty quick to head out to Scotland.
Saturday. I so can't wait.
Yeah, and
I mean,
how
so you know what? Like 2 weeks ago, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I got to get ready and go to Scotland in 2 weeks," and now I'm like, "Woohoo!"
how long are you typically gone for?
It really depends. So in the spring, I did 3 tours back to back, which I'll never do again because it was exhausting. But I was gone for about 4.5 weeks, and this time I'm gone about a month.
Okay, that's like a half week under 4 weeks.
Right. I try to go ahead of time to do some of my own exploring of the country.
Mhm.
And a lot of that time will be in social history museums or other archives so that I can come back and let the rest of the world know what's there. You
Nice.
blog about it, and I get to travel. And
How many times a year do you take these tours?
so normally it was once a year. This time I did 3 tours in May and another. Last year I did 2. I did one in May and one in September. This year I did 3 in May and one in September.
Jeez.
And next year I'm just doing 2 in May back to back.
That's
And I got invited to do the Celtic conference in Boston in April, which sounds like a lot of fun.
That does sound a lot.
Doesn't it? I know.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
Too bad it wasn't like over March or something, but
like, I don't know, maybe around the 13th or something.
the 17th, yeah.
Just picking a random date in March.
Who picked it? Let's have a talk with those organizers.
So where on the web can people find you? I've got links all over the place, but where can people find you on the web?
So I have a Facebook page, and it is pretty active. There's almost 43,000 followers on there. And it cracks me up, honestly, because it's called Scottish Genealogy, and you can tell it's mine because there's a little Scotty dog with a tartan tam, right? But you post things about genealogy research, and it gets a few likes and maybe a share. Like the really die-hard genealogists will share that, right? And like yesterday, I posted a thing on a Scottish recipe, and it's gone viral.
Oh, jeez.
Crazy. Always. Or if I do on something like on music right, it's all that stuff where it evokes memory for people. That's the stuff that they eat up. So, yeah, it's fun.
Now, I've got a question.
So I'm there, and I have a website, which is genealogytoursofscotland.ca. And from there, you can hit the button to go to my blog. And when I'm in Scotland, Eric, I blog every single day, as long as there's Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it
So
just follow your tours as you're writing
Yeah.
stuff down.
Yeah.
And you're on Twitter at Genealogy Tours.
At Genealogy Tours, I am so. Yeah, I'm everywhere.
I'm going to throw you
as scary as that is.
I've got a question for you that I didn't prep you for beforehand.
Sorry, my mother's calling. Gotta go.
No, it's okay. Back in 1900, I found a client who had married. They lived in England, but they drove or traveled up to Scotland and got married and then came back. Do you know why that would be? Any reason at all?
I do know that. The Scottish marriage laws were much more lax than the ones in England. And so, and that's actually, people over in America particularly will call it a Gretna Green wedding. And it's because Gretna Green in Scotland was the first stagecoach changing post north of the English border. And so, see, look at that. I told you I had a head full of useless information. If I could market this man, I could be a billionaire.
You could be on like Scottish version of Jeopardy.
Yeah, but then you'd have a whole bunch of other Scots say, that's not true. You're making They'd be calling BS on everything I said. So they got married by the blacksmith there. And one of the unique things about Scottish marriage is it doesn't have to involve a civil ceremony or a church ceremony or registration. You simply had to have consent. So you could just let your, two people, you and your partner could say in front of two people, from now on, we're to be known as husband and wife, and that was sufficient.
Oh, wow.
And so, although they called him the anvil priest, he really wasn't. He was just the blacksmith, but he served as one of the witnesses, right?
God. Yeah. That, and I like that, the anvil priest.
The anvil priest. I know, because he married you over his anvil. Wonder if he's like
That's
struck.
well, so that wasn't too bad of a surprise question, now was it?
It was not. And actually, I remember going there as a kid because I had a cousin in Carlisle, which is just the other side of the border. And when a couple of years ago I had the kids, I dragged them down there. So, it's changed a little bit, but the original blacksmith's cottage is identical to what I remember it being. Now they've got it's like a wedding village. It's like Vegas, right? It's like everybody gets married on through the next one, and so it's like an assembly line of people getting married. But
just a line of people waiting outside.
Next.
There's like hot dog vendors or
yeah.
like haggis vendors.
Hey, I wonder if they have any of those.
Can you imagine
they have like food trucks for haggis?
They're like what the haggis water would taste like?
Or what the haggis is that? What the haggis is in this?
Well, Christine, we've got Dave Robinson. He piped up on the comments over here, and
Dave.
He's happy to have you speak in 2018. Very excited to have you there with the Western Massachusetts Genealogical Society.
Yes.
Nice.
So cool, right?
Well, I think this is about it. Do you have anything any parting thoughts you want to give before we sign off here? Did you freeze up? Oh my gosh, you froze up, didn't you? All right. Well, we will forego your parting thoughts because we're just about at the end here, and I just got a few things to say before we go. Christine, when you watch this, I want to thank you again for being my guest, and we will be doing this in about 2 weeks. We're going to have another episode in about 2 weeks, and I'm pretty excited. Again, as always, I continue to say that, but I really am. As always, to have our next guest come out in about 2 weeks. And in fact, it'll be on 2 weeks from today, on Monday. So look for that, both in the NextGen Facebook page and on YouTube here and around the Twitterverse. But other than that, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. Again, I'm Eric Wells, the Education Director of NextGen Genealogy Society, oh my gosh, I should be good at this by now. All right, guys, I will talk to you later. Thank you.